Hello, everyone. And today again, we are discussing some challenges. You can say interview questions again related to a Scrum Master job. And we have a professional
Okay.
and she is willing to share her ideas. Okay, before we talk about your questions, maybe a little bit brief about your background, like what do you do, how do you get started?
Sure,
Yeah.
Saket. Yeah. Overall, I have 11 years of experience in IT. In all these years, I was part of Oracle ERP implementation. It's like reporting and analytics, data, and all that sort of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
3 years back, I got an opportunity to. I worked in all kind of industries like
Mm-hmm.
IT and consulting. I was one of the big auditor, means one of the big auditors, big four auditors. I was worked with them as well.
Okay.
So, so then I thought that I saw the industry, then I should go for a product-based company. So luckily, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there everything is smooth, but suddenly I came across this Scrum thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, as per my persona, it is really suitable for me. So I just took the training, the 2 days training. Then
Mm-hmm.
I, after 1 month of reading, I gave my exam in February. I
Mm-hmm.
cleared it. Then I thought that I'll update and I'll study and then upload my profile. So I
Uh-huh.
did that, and thanks to you a lot. Like, you helped me. Your videos played a crucial role in that part. Like,
Good,
I was
good.
reading,
Mm-hmm.
but these things gave me overlook kind of thing. Like, I got to know, okay, how to address questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, means every interviewer gave me outstanding feedback.
Good.
So
That's very good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Good.
So
So
I
you have some
got
questions. Yeah,
offers.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, Saket, somebody is new to Scrum,
Mm-hmm.
not worked as a Scrum Master before. First time she or he is going to appear. So uh, what will be the first thing the person need to take care of?
See, what I personally believe is the
Mm.
Scrum Master role is also a leadership role. It's a people
Mhm.
leadership role.
Yeah.
And there was a project management role, there was the team leadership role. Similarly, this is also a leadership role. Now,
Mhm.
leadership done in the Scrum context. So it means you also should be knowing the Scrum way of working so that you can
Mhm.
guide your people in a Scrum way of working. At the same time, you can
Mhm.
take care of a soft issues related to building the team, ensuring their conflicts are taken care. They are more focused of getting things done. They are
Mhm.
transparent about their problems. So setting up the Scrum values, as if I just relate to that, is something which is not
Mhm.
straightforward. It's primarily working with the people. Yeah. So that's
Mhm.
the kind of stuff one has to focus on. So you can definitely talk about artifacts and the meetings and what should be done in the meeting. But ultimately, the
Okay.
real thing happens inside the meeting. And real thing
Mhm.
is done by the team members, not by the you. So say when
Mhm.
you are focusing on creating an environment where people can prepare and do things like sprint planning
Mhm.
meeting. As a Scrum Master,
Mhm.
you cannot plan sprint. You can help them, you can put the agenda, but ultimately they need to think about the matter, they need to listen to each other, and they need to come
Mhm.
up with something. So you need to facilitate those conversations where all these things can happen. And that's the
Mhm.
whole idea of the role of a Scrum Master. So yeah, so as a new person, depending upon where the team stands, if the team is
Mhm.
very new, then you definitely
Mhm.
start with educating them about
Mhm.
ways of working. A new team formed, usually the leader, be it a Scrum Master or any leader, will have a lot of
Mhm.
hand holding initially. So you teach, you train, you mentor, you tell them a lot of stuff. Yeah. Over a period of time, you stop doing telling and you start asking, okay, how should we
Mhm.
handle this better? What is your opinion about it? How can we do it in a different way? So that's how you will make your transformation from telling to mentoring and coaching. But yeah, that is how initially you get started with the telling stuff. Yeah. So any
Okay.
particular thing you are looking for, or anything particular area which you have a query about?
Uh, yeah, it is like, excuse me. It is like, suppose initial phase I entered in the project, what will be the first approach towards the product owner and the stakeholder? Suppose it might be the scenario like, sprints have been already planned out. They have already 2 3 sprints they might have planned it out. In that scenario, what will be my questions to them to understand that thing?
Okay, so it's like this, that you are joining an implementation, you are joining the one team. They do have a release plan, if I say, for upcoming 2 3 sprints, and now you are coming along. How do we ensure collaboration with the stakeholders and product owners? So that's the
Product
thing
owner.
which you are exploring. So
Exactly.
the product owner should remain engaged in explaining the user stories or whatever the name you give to the requirement, because requirement should be understood progressively, and at the same time you need to get the feedback on those requirements also progressively. It should not happen
Okay.
that you are done with the sprint and then you are finding the feedback around that. So there has to be a progressive engagement with the product owner. That's the whole idea. So now you listen to the product owner's concern. So if I am a new Scrum Master, there is a development team they get started with, and I am having my first meeting with the product owner. I may start with, what are your concerns related to this project area? What are the important aspect you want to make sure that they should go right? What do you expect from development team? What are your expectations from me? So that I understand. So I am primarily asking question for myself. Yeah. What do you think I should know more about, so that I can also ensure that I am more prepared and collaborate with you and the team in a better way. So I take feedback that, okay, what should I do to ensure that we go smooth? Yeah. So similarly, that's the first level meeting I may do. And then going forward, based on the inputs and action item I get, I do my preparation. I understand what is the area. I also see a team member's views related to those areas. And then whenever we have a next meeting where there is an opportunity for collaboration, I ensure that good collaboration starts happening, or some amount of working agreement. Initially, maybe there is no collaboration, they are just starting with, I may facilitate working agreement formation for the Scrum team. So the development team, how they are going to interact with the product owner, what product owner expects from them. So we do a process of setting up a team. You can say team charter, team norms, or a team ground rules, and that could be the artifact which you may produce in the beginning. So you are saying that I will talk, I will understand the expectation of the product owner, I will understand the expectation of the development team, and then I will, after doing that background study, I will spend some time, all of us together, and we will form a working agreement with each other. So that will work as a foundation for our future discussions. So that's the stuff I may want to do as a first thing.
Oh, yeah, Saket. And Saket, can I also ask the PO like, what he or she need, like don't like the current team's behavior, and they can they if they want to improve on that part, is it, what do you think? Is it a good question to ask the PO?
So maybe not a negative question. You can ask in a way. So what are your concerns? What are your concerns? So not
Okay.
pointing out what is about the team concern. The concern could be a business concern. Concern could be a team concern. Concern could be a technology concern. Whatever is the concern will come out. Because when you give a word team, then it is pointing out that you are suspicious about the team concerns only. So you give out what are your biggest worries, what are the key focus areas you have. So I'm understanding that personality. I'm working with the guy. And primarily, it is all about knowing each other. These answers are
Yeah.
not important, but based on these answers, you build the rapport, and then you may come up with the subsequent working. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Uh, Second thing is like, see, there is a scenario like, I'm working for a client, and the client team, the development team, consists of 2 3 members of client, and rest 10 members are from a third party vendor. So in that scenario, what document should I take in care, like in the team level, for my clarity, or if any kind of challenges is going to come in the future to deal with that? So what is your suggestions on that part?
Perfect. So the thing is that whatever Scrum tells us, like a Scrum guide, it is a good for a typical case to begin with. But as the situation changes, we need to add things to it. Yeah, it is not having all the solution. Now you are putting up a situation which is very typical, which is very unique in a nature, atypical in a nature, and we can say that there is a the Scrum Master is coming from a vendor one, the client is hiring it, and client has a vendor two also hired, and then client and vendor two teams are coming together and you are handling them as a Scrum Master. Am I getting it right? Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, so it's again a three-party roles, and that the challenge it may bring, it's not necessary always, it all depends upon what are the people, how they have hired them, what is their contract between these two vendors, because the contract between the client and the vendor will also define the behavior these guys are exhibiting. Because many times when the long-term contracts are there, these people may behave as if they are the employee of the same company. So they keep their the organizational label out of their mind, and they work comfortably. But if the contracts are short term and people are worried about, they need to relocate to somewhere else after this team gets over and all, then their behavior might be influenced by that. Yeah. So I need to see what is the trust level, what is the collaboration level. So if I have a good trust and collaboration level, I may work with a normal Scrum scenario only. All of us may belong to a different organization, but we are a one team. But if I see that there is a deficiency in the trust, and the environment can only help you to reach a particular level of trust. Beyond that, the environment itself does not support building the trust. You have to suspect each other because of the complexity of the contract and type of work we are doing. So depending upon that, we may come up with the documentation. We may come up with the evidences. We may come up with the checkpoints. Yeah. So checkpoints could be anything, yeah, depending upon the type of contract you have. It could be the checkpoints talking about the overall adherence to definition of done, some amount of a measurement, how the teams are performing over a iteration basis. The only recommendation I would put is the evaluation of the performance, the evaluation of the checkpoints. The frequent we do, the better it is. So rather than you do 3 months review, it's better you have every iteration review or every month review, so we know how things are going and we can take a corrective and preventive action earlier than later. So that's something I can recommend as a approach. But documents, if the contract is based on time, then timesheet will become a document you need to prepare. If the contract is based on the quality, then the number of defects and the reason behind those may become a document to take care of. Yeah. So we need to find some healthy environment, but at the same time, there could be some constraints, and for that we need to come up with some checks and balances.
Suppose the client have its own defect management system. They have a portal where defects are logged in, and they are filtering on day-to-day basis on certain criteria and taking on the defects. So in that particular scenario, as the same scenario involves here also, like two different teams are working, like previously I said. So here, what should be how I'll put my question, like here, what kind of document, means any specific document am I going to maintain? It's not about timesheet, it's not about generic thing. In this particular scenario, any specific document?
You need to see your contractual obligations. Yeah. So what is your
contractual application? Suppose Saket, this scenario is like it's a long-term client. Yeah. They are means I am the person. Suppose I am the person as a Scrum Master. I'm working with the client. It's a long-term thing. We are working for the same client for a longer period. It's like 4-5 years, 6 years, kind of sort of thing.
So what is your invoicing basis? Like on which basis your performance is getting evaluated between you two? Or
based on the sprint outcomes. Like if the team is performing well and the sprint goals are met and the stakeholder feedbacks are positive and there is no escalations, Then based on that, the invoicing is happening.
Yeah. So I think these are the things you need to document. Yeah. So you may need to have a monthly or a sprint performance report, yeah, which may talk about all these parameters. So what happened, what was the achievement in a sprint, what was the misses, and what contributed to those misses, yeah, based on the retrospective or some of the root cause analysis which you have, and what was the overall satisfaction level of the stakeholder in a given sprint. And then you have this document, you have this performance reporting which you perform every iteration, and you share with some set of stakeholders, and you give them a time to raise queries and objection if they have any. And going forward, this might be a part of your sprint review as well. You may give a brief about it during the sprint review, and later on you may send it as a documented thing. So that may work as a progressive documentation of how things were going on and what has been observed good and what has been corrected over a period of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. My next question is like, one of my friends, she is a Scrum Master. So she told me during a last discussion, like they don't have, the stories don't have any acceptance criteria. And before it goes to the stakeholder, the Scrum Master is giving the nod of sign like, yeah, it can go. So that it's not the Scrum way of working, I believe. And in that particular scenario, she is really worried how to address that issue to management so that they will be convinced and the situation will be taken care.
Simple case is, if the stories are getting approved and they are getting into production and customers are happy with it, then you are doing everything right. But if they are just getting accumulated and they are anticipated to go live after a few months, and during that time the stakeholder will see it, then you are taking a big risk. Yeah. So that's
if I'll give you the real-time scenario, what she explained to me, the product is live. Okay, people bought the product and they are using it. While using it, they are come across the defects. So they are raising the defects. Team is working on that, and there is no acceptance criteria. Once the defect is fixed, team is releasing that, and she is releasing that. So
that's an acceptance criteria. So that's an acceptance criteria. So you can say that you don't need a user story now. Your backlog is a defect backlog, and defects are pretty much well defined. So you have a steps to recreate. You also know the steps of confirmation. And once the defect gets closed, it gets closed. Yeah. So primarily, if you are working on defects, then you may you and someone is there who can ensure that the recreation, whenever before we ship the defect, resolve the defect, we have checked it, and we have checked the recreation steps as well, and we know that this is adhering to our quality standard. So technically speaking, in this situation, I think definition of done is the most important thing. So we should ensure that incremental fixing of a defect is not creating any background problem, and we are understanding the defect well. And if our understanding of a defect is going well, then I think this is a good process to move forward. Yeah. And technically, it may not require the typical Scrum, because there is no demo is expected to happen at the end of an iteration. There is no feedback is expected to come based on the demo. So the backlog refinement itself is not happening here. So it's like that you have done it. So which is, you can say it's another stage of development. I don't know why they are using Scrum, because since they are fixing each and every defect, they might find it difficult to do a sprint planning also. They may find it difficult to set a sprint goal as well, because they might be getting these things ad hoc basis, So I might not know until unless they have a long defect backlog. So if they have a pending defects, and then sprint by sprint, they are planning some set of defects and fixing it, then it still makes sense. But in the other case, it may not. Yeah.
To this, I want to add one point, Saket. Like during one of my interview, during the client round, the client asked me that, tell me under which circumstances or scenario Scrum is not required. So I gave a reply like where we don't need any frequent implementations, no enhancements are happening very frequently, and the process is steady and it is stabilized well. People know what's coming and what needs to be going out. So in that process, we don't need Scrum. Then his next question was like, we are that kind of organization. Then what do you think? Is Scrum is going to work in our environment or it is going to fail? So I was like, I can't. It's really risky or very early to say something on or conclude anything. Yes, it is going to work or not.
Perfect.
Over a period of time after performing, we may be in a situation to tell that whether it is going to work or not. So
Perfect. See,
in this,
any framework can work provided we start owning the framework rather than we start saying Scrum is saying us to do so. So we are doing it and we are failing. So in a simple word, when we start with Scrum, the Scrum tells you own your framework by doing a retrospective. So at the end of every iteration, you do a retrospective and you change your Scrum, or I would say you add things to your Scrum. So the basic container may remains the same, but you add things to it. That's the whole thing we are doing. Now, the idea which usually we see is this time boxing thing is useful for you or is it a problem creating for you? That is the first thing we need to resolve. And can we have a time boxed way of working? If there are advantages with associated with the time boxed way of working, there are risks and disadvantages associated with the time boxed way of working. And usually the advantages are more. So that's why people take the time boxed way of working. So if we see the time boxed way of working is not working for us, then we need to see, okay, what else can work good for us? Yeah. So that's the whole part of it. And again, each project will go through multiple phases of the development life cycle. Not necessarily a one way of doing Scrum will be always relevant throughout the project life cycle. So in the organization, there are initiatives where we are exploring, we are doing some big chunk of work where the feedback is needed, the requirements are emerging. There you will see a little bit more structured, time boxed, inspect and adapt. There will be a situation where the things are going direct to production. You don't need to give a demo to anyone. One issue is resolved, you put into a production. Nobody is coming to a sprint reviews. And rather than you take a feedback, you observe when it goes to the production. And that's a feedback. You don't ask someone, you just observe how things are going. If they are going in a right direction, the feature remains into the production. If the things are not going in the right direction, the feature comes back and get modified. So then you may need to have a different adapted thing. So yeah, in an interview space, it's difficult to say it is right or wrong, but you can definitely say that in Scrum also, we are expected to do continuous retrospective. The Scrum is not anticipating that one framework will fit for all, and it also anticipates that we will add things to it to make it suitable to our context. The context always matter, and it's very difficult to say that context, one framework will be suitable all the time. It might be suitable in some teams, it might be suitable at some stages of the product development, and may not be suitable at other stages of the product development. Yeah, but in general, Scrum is for a complex process, as you explained to them. But again, sometimes it's a political also that they want to follow Scrum. They want to call themselves Scrum, even if whatever they do, they do. So that's also, we need to be a little careful. We can say, okay, yeah, it's okay.
yeah, we can't hurt their sentiments as well.
Yeah.
Saket, suppose every day I'm having a status call after rather than daily stand-ups, which I'm having with my team. I have a status call with my external stakeholders. So what report should I carry over there?
So again, what is the objective of that status? And if it is happening every day, that we need to understand that.
Yeah, it's happening every day. It's kind of status only. So like, what are the challenges today? Where are we standing? And what are the things it got addressed yesterday, and whether it is rectified or still in the bucket? If there is any challenges, then why that was not done? So kind of this thing.
Okay, so we can say that it's a management daily Scrum. And in the management daily Scrum, management wants to know that if there is any impediment which they need to resolve, which Scrum Master could not resolve. Is it a good way to say that?
In a way, but sometimes it like development teams are not done anything, then the Scrum Master is accountable for answering that thing. So it is a very awkward situation. It's like development team member haven't done that, and how the Scrum Master is going to answer on their behalf. So, but the stakeholder is asking the Scrum Master that you are accountable, you have to answer me. In this situation, how to deal with that?
So what is the problem? The problem is the meeting, or problem is the report, or problem is the accountability of the development team?
It's a mixture of everything.
Yeah. So see, as a documentation, it could be a simple, you may have a simple status report which talks about how many improvements are open, how many improvements has been resolved, and how are we progressing towards sprint goal, how confident we are in achieving sprint goal, and what are the risks associated with it. Yeah, that probably they may want to know. And technically speaking, we should try to make it an information radiator for everyone, to the team as well. And this information is something which is shared at the status call as well. So once the management daily scrum happens, you share that snapshot of your information radiator, which is also known to everyone else in your development team. Yeah, that's as an information. Yeah.
Can I call it as a deck?
Can I call it as a
deck? Like the deck is supposed to the status.
Yeah.
Can I call it as a deck? Day-to-day deck?
Yeah. Day-to-day, you can call it. You can call it. Yeah, you can call it. Yeah. Now, the issue related to accountability of the development team. So first thing is that this whatever information is getting shared, it should be shared from a common place, or this information is also available to the development team. First thing is that. So that's a common situation. You know, both of us are aware that this is also going to a management review, and probably we are taking a happy path, positive path. Management wants to help us. That's the only thing they are worried about, and they want to know where we stand. So rather than looking at an information radiator, they want to hear it from a Scrum Master. So that's the whole part of it. Now, if something is not working, the Scrum Master also has to own it. You cannot say that it is about the development team, because you are part of development team. So we can say that ultimately you are accountable to make development team worry about that particular work. And how do you make it? By making sure that whatever information we are sharing, that information is also accessible for them. So if we see that there is nothing has moved from a day 1 to day 2, and we are not even inching towards the sprint goal, it's clear to everyone in our daily scrum also that we have a messy situation right now. And that's the situation also getting communicated to the stakeholders, and you own it at a stakeholder level. But in a development team meeting level, the team also should own it, that yes, we are in a mess. So everybody agrees to the mess, and then you are owning that particular situation. So when they also own it along with you, then we can also find out what can we do about it. If you just keep getting humiliated because of that situation, then the action is also not happening. And you might be also thinking, you know, why I am in a trouble. It's the development team's problem. I don't have any control on it, but still that this all is expected from me. What I do here. So you need to own it, but at the same time, you also need to make your development team own it. And you can only make them own it by sharing the common information. But at the same time, you also stand in the meeting as a representative, because all of you are expected to resolve it for the betterment of your own team.
Yeah, Saket. One more question is like, if people are thinking like retro is of no use. The defect scenario which I gave previously, like there is no acceptance criteria, it is coming and people are fixing and Scrum Master is releasing that. In that scenario, the team is thinking there is no need for the retro. So how Scrum Master should motivate her team to do the retro?
See, what I believe here is retrospective or continuous improvement is something which is not only linked to Scrum. Even if you don't follow Scrum, still you need to do continuous improvement. That's the simple thing. So each project management way of working, each management way of working is always to find out how do we improve our way of working on a regular basis. So we improve little bit. Now, sometimes these improvements are done by the manager alone, and the manager tells us this is how we want to do it going forward. But in today's knowledge industry, what we believe is managers might not be that much aware. So what things are going on and how do we improve? We need to jointly think about it. So what we have to sell as an idea is, and really believe as an idea is, that there is always a scope for improvement, but that improvement can only happen when everybody put a joint effort. We cannot just do it a single-handedly. So it has to be done together. And whatever improvement we are doing, it will benefit everyone. So development team will also get benefit out of it. They may have a better priority management. They may have a better stress management. They may have a better work allocation management. And that is something, a benefit which will go into their pocket. If the benefit is not visible, they may not have an incentive to do it. So as a leader, I'm not using a Scrum Master alone. I sell the idea of continuous improvement. I sell the idea of it requires a joint working. And I show that this joint working is improving life on a regular basis. Now, after having these three things, we may have a defined frequency for it. It may not be needed every week or every 2 weeks, depending upon the situation we are working in. But there is always a need of a continuous improvement, else we may keep repeating the same mistakes.
So can I say here, like after every sprint, suppose the sprint is of 2 weeks duration. So after every sprint, is it not mandatory to do a retro? And can I combine 2 sprints retro in one?
So the idea here is, if you call yourself Scrum, then it doesn't make sense to do that. So that's they will say you are not doing it right. But it all depends upon what your teams are agreeing to. And you may try to improve your every 2 weeks retrospective, but if you see that is not producing the desired result, you may do some adjustment and see, has it produced a better results for you? Because ultimately it all depends upon the result. So doing once in a iteration, after 2 iteration, 3 iteration, has a little bit logistic meaning only, that how much time we are putting into it. But the whole idea is what benefit we got out of it. So we need to see those benefits. And when we see the benefits of coming in, and we also see that frequency is not including more benefit, then we may adjust those frequency as you go along. Yeah. Especially when your work environment has already shifted, where it is becoming more and more predictable. It is more and more. So good practices and best practices started coming in. Yeah. So in the Scrum world, we don't have a best practice. We need to discover the best practice all the time. But over a period of time, when we have enough data, enough knowledge of our product, we start getting the best practices. So when we get the best practices, then the improvement speed is also a little less frequent, because we already have an established data which we want to follow. So in those cases, you may start having little less frequent continuous improvement meetings. Yeah.
And this may vary based on the organization types, like every org has its own process culture. So it may vary.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It may vary based on the organization, the people willingness to improve. But as a Scrum Master, my whole idea here is that each retrospective should produce something which improves the life of my team member. Yeah. If I do that, then it's a good thing. Not necessarily improve the quality of the product alone. Because product quality improvement, people may not appreciate. Yeah, they may like it, but they may not relate to it that well. So I need to ensure it improves the impact should be on the person as well on a regular basis. Yeah.
And Saket, in one of my interview, I got a question like, what is sprint zero? So I have no clue, like, what is sprint zero? I never read about it. So can you put some light on that part?
So it's a little bit of a practice. Scrum people avoid using that word. They don't like calling something called sprint zero. But at the same time, this is a practice sometime get followed. See, the whole idea here is, from a Scrum point of view, at the end of a sprint, you should have a business value delivered. You cannot have just exploration. You cannot have a sprint where you want to say, we want to set up the infrastructure for the development team. We just want to hire the development team. We just want to give a training to a development team. So they want to have a sprint which produce at least some functionality, some increment, which can be demoed and which can be go forward. Yeah, that's the whole idea. But in many, especially when people do projectized Scrum, where there is a project kind of a Scrum starting and project kind of an ending, then they need some startup time where they understand the vision, they set up the first level of backlog, kickoff meetings and setting up the ground rules, identifying people. Where do we do all this? So many times, this all work they put into an area which is before the first sprint. Now, some of them, they start calling it a sprint zero. They are saying, since we have not started with a sprint, zero means it produces no value. So we are all clear that it is not producing value and we are doing the startup work. Yeah. So you may call it an inception activity. You may call it a discovery. You may call it initiating of the project. You may call it sprint zero.
Yeah, it's exactly the initiating of the project. Like we have some prerequisite list and we are just fulfilling before doing the work.
Yeah. And try to keep the duration as short as possible, because we will keep improving the infrastructure and rest of the work as we go along. It is not a one-time job. So we start with a sprint and continuously we keep improving it. So that's the whole idea we wanted to promote as we go along.
Saket, I'm done with my questions.
Good.
One more query is like, if suppose I'm going to train a team, is there any portal or system where can I get a good material? Where can I refer and prepare my presentation?
So see, internet is full of it. That is definitely there.
Yeah, I know, but
any direct source, I'm not sure if you can get some direct source to one place where you can get PDFs and presentations ready.
Kind of.
Yeah, so I don't think you may get it, and there is a risk also because they might be very old as well. So you need to add things. You may refer the books alone, but ultimately you need to come up with some material.
Prepare my own. After reading.
You may get some amount of help, and maybe organization might have already created something. The organization where you are going to train, usually they have their own some set of material which can be extended and customized, and that's how you may probably approach that. So that's the possibility there. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Saket, for your time.
Good.
This is really going to help me.
Perfect. So thank you. And in case you have a follow-up thing to do let me know. We can figure out some other slot.
Sure.
And continue working. Yeah.
Sure, I will. Thanks a lot.
Talking.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Same here.